everyone, it's Taylor with the Daily Geddon, and today we're going to talk about S-178, or an amendment to S-178, which is the coronavirus relief response from the Senate Republicans in a rebuttal to the Democrat House's HEROES Act that I've already talked about the appropriations for, and with that we're going to roll the intro. First of all, this is nothing new. This piece of legislation was introduced on September 8th, and since then, our Congress has basically given up on coronavirus relief. And they're pretty much taking all of their time to look at the Supreme Court vacancy, as well as waiting till after the election to do anything at all. So with that, I want to say that we're not going to talk about so much of what the specifics are in the bill, but there is a very interesting twist to this bill and the way that it was introduced that I really want to talk about. The summary of this bill is that it was focused primarily on liability protection for businesses and entities from coronavirus. That was a big thing that the Republicans were pushing for, to make sure that coronavirus does not turn into a lawyer's feeding frenzy and everyone's not accusing certain businesses of infecting them with coronavirus. So basically what it says is that if you are not being absolutely 100% negligent, and you cannot be proven to be 100% negligent, that you are trying to at least meet your state, local, or federal, literally any government kind of protection from coronavirus, that you are protected. This bill also extends some things from the CARES Act, like the Paycheck Protection Program benefits, as well as some unemployment benefits, and it gives the Postal Service an $8 billion completely forgiven loan. So it's basically giving the Postal Service $8 billion for operational costs. It also has an interesting special interest at the end, which is about securing critical minerals. Critical minerals are defined as things that are not oil or fuel, so things like gold, silver, anything used in currency, things like that. Things that are used outside of fuel or energy. I don't know why, but they have a huge thing about securing those critical minerals, which is fair because the Democrats had stuff like that in the HEROES Act, and that's a thing that you can go back and forth on. Give me this, I'll give you that type of thing. That's how our party system works, which is awesome. Which brings me to how this piece of legislation was actually introduced. And it was introduced by Senator Mitch McConnell, who is the majority leader of the Republican Senate, and he is from Kentucky. And that is important because I want you to understand the psychology behind how he introduced this bill. Now, it was introduced to completely gut another bill, and this bill was S-178, and it was known as the Uyghur Act, which, yes, I am pronouncing that right, and I don't pretend to know all the ins and outs and all of the intricacies and all of the nuances behind this issue, but there is a huge humanitarian problem in China right now, that these people that are called Uyghurs, they are Muslims, specifically Turkish Muslims, that are being basically sequestered to one piece of China, and they are being worked to death, literally like a Holocaust situation. They are being rounded up and moved over to this one specific piece of China and worked to literal death. It is like a prison camp, exactly like the Holocaust. Now, the interesting thing about that is that how is that controversial at all? This piece of legislation has passed the House, it's sitting at the Senate, waiting for Senator Mitch McConnell to introduce into the Senate to actually vote on. Basically, what the Uyghur Act called for is the condemnation of this horrible, horrible treatment of these people. And if you want some details, I honestly think, however you feel about him, that the Last Week Tonight Show with John Oliver did a really good job explaining exactly what's going on. And if you want the real details and an objective point of view, I would go to that video on YouTube. Now, to go back to my issue with this, is the person that is sitting on this legislation, this non-controversial, just condemn China for treating these people so horribly. All he has to do is introduce this into the Senate. That's what he does. He picks what gets voted. Instead, what he does is he goes and looks at it and says, nope, we will gut it, instead of making a completely new bill, which absolutely does nothing to him. He just has to introduce a new bill. He's trying to amend another bill by completely gutting it and putting coronavirus relief underneath it. I don't know if he thought that maybe he could get it past Democrats if he had the title Uyghur Act above it and then it said an amendment underneath so that they wouldn't read it. I don't know if that was the play, but this is just a horrible, horrible and negligent effort to get coronavirus relief passed. I don't know what he was trying to gain. It's absolutely inexcusable to ignore this legislation and then not only ignore it, but gut it completely and put coronavirus relief in its place. It's kind of a slap in the face to the American people and doing absolutely nobody any good at all. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. I know it was super short, and thank you for watching. I at least wanted to give the Republicans at least a little credit for rebutting the HEROES Act and having some kind of discussion between Democrats and Republicans, albeit it was a horrible discussion and done in my opinion, a terrible, terrible way. But at least they are going back and forth, and there's at least some kind of exchange of ideas. With that, I want to say follow, like, share, all that good stuff. Leave me a comment. I really appreciate it, and have a good one.